Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating and, honestly, kind of quirky historical and theological mystery that we found in a sermon titled Witnesses to These Things. We're going on a bit of a journey here, from ancient scriptures to some deeply bizarre medieval pilgrimage sites, all the way down to the modern biology of our own bodies. And get this, it all centers around one unexpectedly specific body part.
So, why the historical fascination with Jesus' feet? I know, it almost sounds like the setup to a joke, right? But as you dig into the source material, you realize that for centuries, artists, architects, and hymn writers were just bizarrely fixated on feet. I mean, we're talking about a massive cultural and religious trend that spread like wildfire across the globe. So, how did this happen? To really get a grip on it, we have to look at how people literally, physically built monuments to this fascination.
Which brings us to Section 1, a fixation on feet, pilgrimage sites, and peculiar art.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how wildly different this historical fixation could be. Look at Walsingham, England, for example. In this one Anglican chapel, if you look up at the ceiling, there's no chandelier. Instead, there's a plaster circle carved to look like fluffy clouds, and just dangling right out of the middle of it are two bare, sandalless plaster feet. It literally looks like Jesus is just being beamed up right through the roof. It's pretty amusing, kind of quirky. But then, contrast that with the Chapel of the Ascension over in Jerusalem. There, you'll find this incredibly solemn, ancient slab of stone set right into the floor, and it holds what looks like a single physical footprint. The history behind these two spots is just staggering. Walsingham, that dates all the way back to the 11th century, and it's still pulling in over 250,000 visitors every single year. But Jerusalem is even older. We're talking 4th century. And what's absolutely beautiful about the Chapel of the Ascension is that it's a sacred space shared and revered by both Christians and Muslims, since the Ascension story actually shows up in the Quran, too. Now, you might be wondering, wait, why is there only one footprint in Jerusalem? Well, according to our source, back in the Middle Ages, the right footprint was actually relocated over to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. But seriously, where does this intense, globe-spanning obsession come from? Well, it actually comes straight from the Bible itself. The text mentions feet over 160 times, and specifically there are 27 references just to Jesus' feet alone. We get these vivid stories of feet being washed with tears, feet trekking down dusty, rocky roads, and of course, feet wounded on a cross. It's a recurring, deeply physical motif throughout the whole text. Moving on to Section 2, the story of the Ascension. Gazing upward. So, to really understand those dangling plaster feet in England, or that stone footprint in Jerusalem, we need to go back to the foundational accounts in Acts and Ephesians. The text paints this intensely visual scene. Picture this. The disciples are standing on a mountain, Jesus is lifted up, and a cloud obscures him from their sight. If you think about it from a strictly physical, literal perspective, as he goes up, what is the absolute last thing those disciples would have seen? His feet. The very same feet that had walked thousands of miles all over Galilee, the same feet wounded on the cross, that was their last physical glimpse of him, which explains exactly why artists and architects became so completely obsessed with capturing that specific moment. But it's not just a literal thing. There is massive theological weight here too. Take this line from Ephesians: God has put all things under Christ's feet. In the ancient world, to have something placed under your feet wasn't just a casual phrase. It was the ultimate symbol of absolute rule, authority, and dominion. So those ascending feet, they weren't just waving goodbye. They were the ultimate symbol of power.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we pivot to Section 3, the work of our feet. We're getting into biology and distance here.
To truly grasp the metaphor, we have to jump from ancient theology straight into modern biological reality to see what feet actually endure. Check this out. An average adult human skeleton has 205 bones, right? Astoundingly, 52 of those bones, literally a full 25% of your entire skeletal structure, are packed right into your 2 feet. Throw in 33 joints and 100 muscles, tendons, and ligaments, and you've got this incredibly complex yet super vulnerable piece of machinery that is literally designed to bear the entire weight of your existence. And they never stop working. On top of all that hardware, your feet pack an estimated 250,000 sweat glands. Because walking is just this intensely physical, grueling process. When something is off with our feet, the whole machine breaks down because they are the literal foundation of our movement. And man, we do a lot of moving. Scientists estimate that if you live to be 80 years old, you're going to take roughly 16 million steps.
If you do the math on an average stride, that equals walking about 110,000 miles. Think about that for a second. That is the equivalent of walking around the Earth at the equator 5 times in a single lifetime. Honestly, my feet are tired just thinking about that.
But here's where it gets deeper. Psychologists point out that our feet do a lot more than just carry our physical weight. They carry our emotions and they carry our attention. Think about your own body language. If you're super uncomfortable in a meeting, what do? You might curl your toes or cross your legs to pull your feet back. But if you want to show someone you are absolutely engaged in what they're saying, you instinctively point your feet directly at them. Our feet literally point to where our attention lies. And this psychological reality, that sets up the ultimate climax of the story.
Section 4, From Gazing to Walking, the Angel's Interruption.
Let's head back to the Mount of Ascension for a minute. The disciples are standing there, absolutely paralyzed, just staring up into the clouds at those disappearing feet. Their attention, their physical focus, is pointed entirely upward. And then, according to the book of Acts, 2 figures in white robes just show up and basically shake them right out of their daze. They deliver this incredibly sharp message. Why do you stand looking up towards heaven? Or, to put it a bit more bluntly, stop looking skyward. Let's move to and see how this builds into a total radical shift in their mission. It really breaks down into 3 clear steps. 1, stop looking up at the feet that just left. 2, look down at your own feet. And 3, get to work. Because being a witness, at least the way the text outlines it, doesn't mean just standing around staring at the sky. It means actually turning your feet around, pointing them back toward Jerusalem, and walking the walk.
Which brings us to our final section, Becoming Christ's Feet Today, Taking Over the Work. This is where the history, the biology, and the theology all smash together into a direct call to action. The narrative pivots entirely away from the historical figure of Jesus and lands squarely on us. The one who walked those dusty byways, who healed the sick, who preached all that compassion, his physical feet are not going to touch the earth again, but yours will. The overarching message of the source text here is that the work of compassion now relies entirely on the physical bodies of the people left behind, us. To capture this, the source references an absolutely beautiful, famous prayer by the 16th century Spanish mystic, Saint Teresa of Avila. She wrote, "Christ has no body now but yours, no hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes with which he looks compassion on this world." It's just such a profound passing of the torch. So the crucial point is right here in the second half of her prayer. Yours are the feet with which he walks to do good. Connect that back to those 110,000 miles we talked about a minute ago. 5 trips around the globe in a single lifetime. The metaphor here is incredibly powerful. We are being asked to take over the work, making our daily steps the practical, physical embodiment of care, compassion, and integrity right here on Earth. Which leaves us with one final, incredibly provocative thought to ponder. Out of the 16 million steps you are going to take in your life, how many of them will be walked in compassion? If our attention and our priorities go exactly where our feet are pointed, where are your feet pointing today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this fascinating little look at history, biology, and purpose stays with you on your very next step.